Wenn Sie in Van Duscher Serien sind, sollten Sie sich Wo ist Wanda auf Apple ansehen? Klingt gut? Desperate parents Dedo and Carlotta search for their missing daughter months after her disappearance. Frustrated by the police's inability to find her, they investigate their neighbors, uncovering dark secrets behind closed doors. So Apple is taking advantage of some of the smart and witty content from Germany. And with Where's Wanda, it's a dark comedic mystery that plays a lot on family dynamics and also why we shouldn't really peek over fences. Now, this is 8 episodes that are all about an hour long, and the story follows the Clapp family as the mom and dad try to find their daughter Wanda, who mysteriously disappeared during their town's strange festival, Nuppelwachen. Now, there's a loose theme at play with the celebration and its lore behind it, sometimes influencing the plot trajectories to either give clues or misdirect. Now, much like the German Netflix series How to Sell Drugs Online Fast, Where's Wanda is very self-aware and uses narration to break the fourth wall and speak directly to the audience. Now, this allows for some witty dialogue that also helps to provide background info that we wouldn't necessarily need to watch play out, just because the exposition, it works perfectly as we watch characters performing other actions that don't need that additional exposition. Now, the characters in this, they usually start out grating, mildly frustrating too. But as the series went along, I found myself becoming very invested in them, and actually rooting for several. Now, Wanda's dad, Dedo, who's played by Axel Steen, he's oafish and generally whiny, and I wasn't much of a fan of the character when the series started. Even though he's not dislikable or abhorrent, it was just the lack of confidence mixed with the stammering and the bumbling that made him appear much more stupid than he actually was. Now, as the show goes along, though, he's very endearing. And that oafishness, it translates more into this over-exuberance to please and to love, even though he constantly messes things up or makes situations worse than they had started out. Heike Makash is also not somebody that I was rooting for right off the bat. She's playing Carlotta, Wanda's mom, and she's an overbearing and overprotective mother who also treats her husband like he's a moron, which, like I said, he's not doing himself any favors when we first meet him. But the emotion that we witness from Carlotta is not only convincing, but it runs the gamut, just like a parent who is a missing child would react. And I really appreciate the growth that we watch in her, especially towards the latter half of the show. She's vulnerable and open, but also incredibly understanding, which then turns the tides in her relationships. Now, in addition to the mystery of what happened to Wanda, there's also a side story playing out about a missing journalistic influencer and the illegal animal trade. Now, this isn't always a large focus, but it does dominate the storytelling in small chunks here and there. I appreciate that this isn't just some random tangents that's thrown in for story length. The arcs, they do have purpose, and they work to create complexities across our characters' lives. Now, I love the mix of comedy that we get in this. Some of it is very apparent and right out in the open. Other times, it's much more subtle and understated. Now, I found myself laughing and chuckling out loud many times, especially just thanks to those awkward or tense situations that Carlotta and Dedo would find themselves in. There's also several funny situations that involve Rudiger, Carlotta's brother. He and Dedo, they have this contentious dynamic, but because neither could be considered ultra-macho men who are extremely adept at fighting or even handling themselves, their arguments and spats are typically stupid, and then they're juvenile and become slap fights, with the pair ending up tangled on the ground like a couple of ornery 5-year-olds. Now, for the mystery portion of the story, I do like that it's convoluted and it introduces enough obstacles and misunderstandings to keep the plot twisty and not easily guessed. Now, there are some dire moments in here, too. So the stakes, they're not always kept low with humor. Danger and death, they're part of the narrative. So it's very conceivable that not everybody is going to survive this ordeal. Now, from a technical perspective, the show employs some extremely creative scene transitions. The camera will track a subject, and then as it switches back to go in the opposite direction, the setting has then changed to show a new segment in time. It's flawless, and it maintains the immersiveness of the scene. I would have loved for this to have been used more than it was, but when it was impressive. I'm typically more of a fan of bingeable series with all episodes dropping at once, rather than the week-to-week viewing. Now, this series provides enough story each episode to make it worth the weekly watch. But as somebody who did get to binge it all at once, it was so hard not to click on the next episode. That's not only thanks to the engaging characters and the enjoyable humor, but the general tone of the show and the well-paced mystery also had me hooked. And I don't think you're going to be wrong by watching this week to week, but if you do happen to come late to the show and you do get to binge it, you're in for a treat. I'd mentioned at the start of this about the town's festival celebration, Nuppelwachen, and while it does serve as a small narrative device, there's a lot of focus on the lore for it to have the prominence that it does. The dialogue gags they use with the name are mildly funny, but more typically lazy and obvious, attempting to squeeze more humor in when it's not needed or even fits. For example, when a straight-laced and serious cop voices the small joke, it doesn't land. It feels very forced, completely breaking the tone of her character. In the final few episodes, the pace quickens incredibly, along with the tension and heightened events, but this also makes the series feel slightly rushed just in order to cram everything in before the conclusion. And then I'm kind of mixed on where the series concludes. We do get a solid resolution and answers are provided, but then the story opens the door for more. I'm not sure it's even needed. I mean, I wouldn't mind spending more time with the family, especially because they are so endearing, but the new arc would have to be just as twisty in order to maintain the same emotional vibe. So overall, Where's Wanda is a smart and quick mystery that inserts a ton of dark comedic moments and self-aware dialogue to create misdirections and twists while also developing characters who begin as annoying but become charming by the end. The situational comedy allows for a lot of silliness, but the show also maintains its connection to the heart of the enigma. With complex story arcs that are easily understood, the show presents an easy but engaging watch that should keep you guessing. The ending is a bit rushed, and some story inclusions get more focus than necessary, but all in all, Where's Wanda is worth adding to your list. There's a tiny bit of sex, very brief nudity, a ton of profanity, and some violence. I give Where's Wanda 4 out of 5 couches. So what's a favorite mystery of yours? Now for me, one of the funniest ever is Clue, but let me know what you love to watch in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.